funny. I got asked the question of, how, if money is an issue at Florida State now, would it be that we could go out and get Lane Kiffin? And I was like, whoa. Nobody said anything about Lane Kiffin. Nobody's trying to go out and get Lane Kiffin here. I'll take Larry Smith, the assistant OC at Toledo, for $5,000. Let's go that route.
So hang on, that's interesting. So they brought that up during the hit?
They brought up who would Florida State go after. If they're already burdened by this huge contract that Mike has in the buyout, you're going to be saddling yourself to something similar if you go after a Lane Kiffin. And that's when I was like, yeah, except for I'm not going to go after Lane Kiffin. Michael Alford has not been secretive about his desire to bring in Lane Kiffin, and he has a relationship with Lane Kiffin. He likes Lane Kiffin. I think the two have, spent time together golfing and the like. So I just think that it's kind of a reasonable speculative statement to make. It's like, it's more than an educated guess. The guy's brought the dude's name up many times to many different people, by the way.
Right. Yes. And that's fair. I don't think it would be one person that he speaks that particular thing to. And then this goes back to a discussion that you had with Ira about Alford and what he would do and what would be next. And Alford doesn't like to swim for cost-effective fish. He's swinging for fish that he could take home a trophy with. And Lane Kiffin would certainly be that type of hire. It would follow the trend of how Michael Alford has replaced coaches outside of Luke Laux in his tenure at Florida State.
It would also be nuts. First of all, you're not going to get him. Secondly, why would Lane leave the SEC to come to an ACC team that is, by any definition, fledgling when it comes to the comparison of funds that the schools in the Big Ten and the SEC have? Now, we did a lot to mitigate that disparate number year over year by winning the ACC lawsuit. That helped Florida State a lot, but not enough to where you're making equivalent to what he's making annually at Ole Miss, like what the payouts to those SEC schools are. And that number's only going to go up the longer he stays there. It's not going to get smaller. I don't know, man. I don't. This job, as much as I think it's a dream job because you and I went to school there, doesn't mean that everybody else views this job that way. I dare say right about now, anybody's job in the ACC is considered lesser than a job like Ole Miss or a job like, you could probably name 7 to 8 SEC schools where that is the case, unfortunately. And I think that you could name several Big Ten schools where that is the case as well. This is a lesser job than Southern Cal. This is a lesser job than Oregon. This is a lesser job than Ohio State. This is a lesser job than Michigan. This is a lesser job than a lot of places right now. Hell, somebody might argue it's a lesser job than Indiana. The money difference between the schools in those conferences, the Power 2 and this conference, as well as the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and anybody else you want to name, is pretty significant. And I think there's enough of a difference that any coach in one of those jobs is going to give serious pause to the idea of leaving that behind.
Yeah, I would agree with that as it relates to the extra funds that help put you over the top. I mean, we are correct in also assessing that the rev share is going to have you competitive if you are shrewd and if you also have a really good eye for finding talent and you also have the skill of developing said talent into a contender. You can make 20 and a half work or 18 plus an NIL budget that's top 25. You can make that work and obviously be a top 10 team. You just got done making that point. But if you're in Lane's situation, they're happy with you there. I don't know if they're over the moon, but they're definitely not mad at him. They're definitely not mediocre on him. He's done well there. And he's not sitting at 3 or 4 losses this season after crashing and burning the year before. So now don't lose Oklahoma if you're Lane, but still, you're in a pretty good position if you're Lane at Ole Miss. You don't need to restart any clock of your career. So that would be the argument there. I wonder if they will announce at some point here an extension for him. They probably would have done it already if they were going to do it this week, because by the time you get to Thursday, you're into Oklahoma prep. And that game is it's very interesting for his standing within the hierarchy of SEC coaches. But also, we need to return to the point, which I think is the most important. When you don't have unlimited resources for a coaching staff, $12, $13 million for a coach who doesn't even win the big game with any consistency, and we can agree on that. Why would you ever do that? That doesn't make any sense. You use $4 or $5 million of that, $6 million of that a year on roster, on development, on things that can help your team on the field, rather than a coach who has a habit of losing games that you go, how the hell, Lane, did you blow that one?
Well, to your point, that Lane is still very, very popular and well-liked at Ole Miss, and I would point out that he should be. They went 4-8, 5-7, 6-6, 5-7 in the years before Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin got there, took him to a bowl in his first year, has gone to one every single season, has won 10 or more games 3 times in 6 years. Ole Miss was sub 500. We would kill for Lane Kiffin's record currently. But you're right. He doesn't belong in the same conversation as the best of the best, but he doesn't suck. And he's winning in a way at Ole Miss that nobody else does.
And that's totally fair. And multiple things can be simultaneously true. It's just not for the price that he would cost.
Yes, agreed. I don't want any coach for $12 million a year. I don't know that I would agree to Dan Lanning, and that's my guy. No, I don't see the point. I don't think football's going that way. I mean, you have got to tell me, and I've got to believe it, that 100% or as close to 100% as there can be, the next guy at $12 million, $13 million a year is guaranteeing conference championship playoff appearances and the occasional natty over the next 10 years. You have to guarantee me all of that for me to pay him that kind of money. And who's that guy? Is it Kirby? Maybe. I'd certainly sit down and have a conversation with you if Kirby were interested. Is it Dan Lanning? I would have the conversation with you. Maybe. Can you name another coach?
No.
Name another one.
No, it's Nicholas Saban at $18 million. I give him 18 or 19 million, and then it's nobody. Then really, for me, it's nobody until we get down to $6, $7, $8 million a year. That's a fine salary. $7.5 million. That sounds good. And then hire a couple of multi-million-dollar coordinators if you can. If you got them, and if you can't, give me a $5 million head coach, and then hire a couple of multi-million-dollar coordinators who hit the trail and work the trail very well.
There you go. Give me, because again, I'm going to argue this over and over and over again. The 30-something-year-old coach at Oregon, the 30-something-year-old coach at Georgia. I'm talking about their coordinators. The early 40s head coach at Tulane. Man, those guys all walk into a room, all get asked a football-related question, and an in-depth football-related question, and they all draw it up perfect on the whiteboard. They all have the same answer. This is what I do. This is the defense I run. This is how I handle that, whatever it is you just posited, right? Whatever that question is. Conversely, on the other side of the ball, the reason they're going to do that is they're trying to exploit this. They all have the same information, man. So from here, it becomes, how good are you at assessing talent and projecting that talent from high school to college? How good are you at recruiting? How good are you at sitting down in living rooms and speaking with families and parents and kids and convincing them to come to your school? How good are you at raising money? How good are you at whatever underhanded stuff we have to do to get wins and have the NIL money? Because I know you already know football. You wouldn't be in this room, and you wouldn't have had the jobs at those places, Georgia and Oregon or Tulane or wherever else, if you didn't know football. I need to know, are you a fit? What kind of culture are you going to develop? Can you recruit? Do you get it? Do you understand that we have to own the day at the line of scrimmage? You can get those guys, in my opinion, you can get those guys for far less than $2 million a year, $7 million a year, $5 million. You can get those guys.